All right, it is time. You got anybody who's been watching. Thank you for hanging out with us for this long, but we have gone way longer than I thought we would. I had fun. That was fun
That's
talking
good.
about all
That's
that
good.
news, though.
Good chat.
But yeah, it's time to put the spotlight on episode 1 of What If that aired this week on Disney Plus. It's probably fresh on everybody's minds. It came out on Tuesday at midnight or Wednesday, depending on whenever you watch it. You've had some time to watch it. I'm pretty sure if you're here hanging out with us, you probably watched it. But just for a quick recap, what if the first episode was called "What If Captain Carter Were the First Avenger?" And it's basically a spin on what if Steve Rogers is seriously injured and instead Peggy Carter becomes the world's first super soldier. From then on, the events that we know from the MCU continue to unfold a little differently or significantly different, whatever, however you take it. But that's pretty much the idea of the What If comics. I grew up reading those comics. I loved them. They were something that was like a gateway for me because even if I hadn't read like the 30 or 20 some years of history of a comic, I could go read a What If and just pick it up and be like, oh, that's a cool, interesting story, because they kind of make you aware of what the correct story is first before they tell you, here's this weird, trippy one. So I don't know. Like, I'm assuming Greg and Frank, you also used to read those comics as well, or still do.
Yeah, still love them. I think I like the Civil War one. That was a big heart wrencher, I think, for me. Came out in 2008, 2007, something like that.
Yeah, and Greg.
Yeah, so what ifs, like they've come and gone over the last 30 years. There's been some runs of them were great, some runs of them where I've been like, it could be better.
Yeah.
Offhand, I'm not placing any like super memorable ones, but it was always usually like, what if this major story went a different way? What if the villain won this story? Like, what if, this character had this person's powers? And then you'd go kind of down this what if rabbit hole, literally what if rabbit hole. And what I think makes it interesting now is at the end of Loki, Marvel kicked the door open to a Marvel multiverse, and this is opening the door to something that can now sit within kind of it's what if, but it's also what if, and it kind of can play in the wider Marvel tapestry, which is a bit different because what ifs in the past have always been hypothetical. That is it. What if?
Yeah.
Like we're not doing that multiverse crossover thing here. That door in theory is open, even if Marvel hasn't said it is.
Well,
yeah, they actually have said it is. They've said it's canon.
What if characters in the past have come over, have crossed the threshold into?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had a few.
Yeah,
but
they've had a few that were so successful, right?
Yeah.
Can you name any? I can't remember which ones.
Spider Girl. May
was
Parker,
it Spider?
I think it's.
May was.
Mayday Parker. Yeah.
You're right.
That was.
Right.
She's probably hers was interesting because she didn't really cross over into canon at first. She just kept her own world, kept spinning. And I have all those books back at my dad's house, and it was a remarkably good run. It was one of the better Spidey books for a long time. It got a little old and long in the tooth near the end, but she never actually came over to the proper 616 Marvel universe. She stayed in her own little corner of the world, and I think they eventually did a small crossover somewhere, if my memory serves. But that was about it.
She's in Spider-Verse. She's in Spider-Verse. Both of them. Both of the Spider-Verses, right?
Was she?
The Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon. She's in both of them.
Spider-Geddon, yeah.
Yeah, she's in both. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, did she? Oh wait, yeah. Okay, wait. Yeah, I think she's in there. I'm trying to think.
She's in both. I'm positive.
What's her role in Spider-Geddon? That was what I'm wondering.
Damned if I remember. There's so many.
Frank, are you drinking a Monster at 9 p.m.? Fucking animal.
I don't sleep till 4 in the morning anyway. So
don't judge him. But anyways, so the reason I asked you guys if you did read the comics is because I was curious before we get into I want to know for sure what Ricky's thought on this, because I know this is not something that he grew up with. But I'm curious, how close to the source material did this episode hit for you? You can go first, Greg. Sorry.
In terms of the source material of What If comics, I felt it hit the vein of that pretty nicely. In terms of the source material of, Captain America, the First Avenger, I thought it was mostly in line. I thought there were a couple of things that felt a little bit didn't quite line up, but by and large, I thought it lined up reasonably well, and it twisted fate in the way I would have expected the comic to twist fate. If the comic had done this story, had taken all
Right.
these pieces without knowing anything about the film, I think they would have landed in a similar spot on the big character beats. Some of the specific action, probably not.
It's a pretty good assessment right there.
Well, how do you know that's a good assessment?
That's what I feel.
Frank, since you're somebody who also read the books, what do you think about this about the show so far?
I feel like it's a good assessment. I think the show is a good assessment. No, I thought it was great. I think I was talking to you about Exiles, where they have like a version of Captain Carter. It's like Peggy with
Right.
the shield, but she's not I don't think she has the serum in her, if I'm not mistaken. But she's like plucked out of her timeline, and that's what this episode was kind of reminiscent of. They took that concept and dialed it up to 11, and had her like jumping over stuff and kicking motorcycles and
Fighting Dame.
Yeah, fighting Dame. But I thought it was cool. But I don't think I thought it was good. I think she's supposed to be the flagship hero of What If. I've heard something about there being like some kind of overarching story.
Yeah, so that's what I was curious about. Like, what if you guys know about that, or if you saw this as the pure anthology that it so far it's presented itself as.
I hope that it does that it remains like an anthology, and then we think like, oh man, it's going to be an anthology, everything's different, and then last couple episodes, boom, they pull out like a What If Endgame, and like pull out.
Oh, that's totally on the cards. That's like in the trailer.
But even go further than that, and like put in like an animated Sylvie, an animated Loki, maybe Wanda, or the White.
I mean, I say go further and put a Captain Carter in the movies.
Okay, I'd be cool with that. Like they could do the Peter Jackson Hobbit thing with her, except in reverse.
So I don't know I don't know how many of you guys have seen this, but this was in the trailer.
Yeah, they showed that.
And so
like Captain Carter talking with Ian.
With Ian.
No, that's strange.
Yeah, so that so as far as I know, the Doctor Strange centric episode of What If is supposed to be the 9th episode of the season. So from what I've seen in interviews and stuff, their plan actually is to present it as an anthology, but also do an somewhat of an interconnective story in which they want Peggy to be the anchor that we relate to and that we can come back to every now and then. So if this show is planned to have a second season already, and they do want to at least once every season come back and revisit Peggy. So that is in essence different already from what If normally does. But I don't know that I dislike that, because I think in general the MCU has been doing things slightly different than what the comics do all the time, right? So why not do something more meaningful with What If? And then I know probably should have warned people, but I mean at this point, spoilers, right? Like this is not in this episode, the thing I just showed you. So this is from the trailer, so we haven't spoiled that. But we will be spoiling the episode if you haven't seen it. But just before I get into the rest of the episode slides, there is this promotional material that also has been leaked that has gone out to different vendors and stuff. And this to me suggests that there actually is going to be something, because you guys, we all know, I mean, Ricky doesn't necessarily, but the rest of us know the Watcher Uatu as this awesome character that is supposed to only show up and observe the biggest moments in the Marvel universe, right? But the reality is like usually the fun of Uatu is like he does the exact opposite of that, right? Like every time something is really big that threatens the fate of the galaxy, he does the exact opposite of what he's supposed to do, and he actually intervenes. So the implication is that he might be assembling a group of people from different multiverses. And like Ricky said, I would love to see if they actually translate this into the live action. But I mean, how much of this did you know going into this?
Me?
Yeah, sure, you or any of you.
I mean, yeah, I follow spoiler stuff pretty heavy, so I was pretty in tune to what it seems like the direction they're going with this. I I'd just be curious and see how they follow through. I think it would just be a shame to see this stuff be isolated to its own animated universe. I would I hate saying like it legitimizes it, but like it would be a really neat feat for them to pull off, like transition this back into the live action stuff, like for sure. Not necessarily. I don't think we'll get like a multiverse team up movie for obvious reasons, like with the ScarJo stuff and the T'Challa situation. Like it's it's just not a feasible possibility. But to see like a Captain Carter or shit, bring back Gamora, some other evil Gamora or whatever. I think it was in the trailer. That'd be kind of cool.
Um, what do you what hit the most? Like Greg, you were mentioning earlier that there was some stuff that kind of you didn't like about the action. Like what was that you were thinking of specifically?
So the things, by and large, I really dug this. I thought they did a great job. I thought they played up Peggy Carter as like a perfect person to jump into this. Really embraced her, embraced having the soldier serum, being Cap, being the hero, kind of throwing up a middle finger to everyone that said as a woman she couldn't do any of those things. I did find it a little funny when she was overly reckless. She was not a character that was reckless. She was a character that'd be aggressive. She was a character, but she was always calculated. So like when she takes the shield and runs towards a Jeep, and then afterwards, like, I didn't know that was going to work. Like, she's not going to do that. She would have thrown the shield. She would have used the shield to cut it. She wouldn't have battering rammed a thing and not known if she could take the hit. That's just not in her character.
She didn't actually say I didn't know I could do this. She said that was brilliant. Like she was.
She actually said, I believe it was more like, I didn't know if that would work.
I mean,
And
if
I
you
just
wanna
remember
talk
as soon as I heard that, it was like, wait, what?
in regards to that scene, it was just a little odd to me. Like she's essentially talking to herself. It's not just like a calm.
Well, it was funny because like you never talk to yourself. I mean,
I do it all the time.
It felt a little that specific scene felt probably the most cartoonish out of that entire episode. Like the car flip, although it was cool, was like that just
I
seemed
don't like your tone, mister. What does that mean when you say that?
my baseline is if I didn't see Cap do it in the movies, like how
Wow.
could she like like I didn't has
No,
Cap
I
ever
don't know.
flipped a truck like that?
You know what? I think you just stumbled upon one of my favorite things about this episode. You are associating them as equal in strength. But if you're remembering correctly, Cap is a scrawny little dude with
Mhm.
like a lot of health problems when he gets the serum. Peggy is a physically fit human being. I
And
like
she's a
that,
fighter.
and she's a
She knows how
fighter.
to fight.
I got the impression that she is significantly stronger than Cap because of those reasons. Did you get that, Frank?
I did. That's why I think she looks bigger than Cap, actually, in my
She's
opinion.
huge.
And
She's huge.
and I'm totally okay with it. I'm totally okay for her to be like on like a She-Hulk level because, like you said, she was already physically fit and trained in the military.
Yeah.
Whereas Cap is just like a little boy. Like think about this, Ricky. Like, could
The
Peggy
physics
Carter?
of that car flip just
No,
made
no, no, no.
no goddamn sense.
What the hell? You
We're
again in
talking
the
about a
universe of the
vibranium
Hulk.
shield in the mix here, though. So, like,
Yeah.
like I kind of took it as, Red Skull had the super soldier serum, and he was not stronger than Cap, and he was also
Yeah.
military fit. So I
Mhm.
took it as she's the same strength level, but she knows how to fight. She knows how to do things. Like you watch her doing a lot of the moves. They're things Cap never embraced until, he got
Later.
a lot of
Yeah.
training. Like at first he was very vanilla, very basic because that's what he knew. She's like, nope, I'm doing jumping spin kicks using the shield and doing and she got really adept really fast. And that
Yeah.
felt like her character. To me, it was less about whether she's stronger or weaker. I could see her being stronger. I could see it kind of being a relative baseline, give or take. To me, it was more like she really embraces it. She knows what she's doing with it. Where Steve had to learn everything at hello. She's like,
Yeah.
nope, I'm trained. I know how to do it, and I am very willing to go in there and kick your teeth in.
Oh, for sure.
By the way, Greg, her line was, "That was brilliant. Let's give it another go."
I could have swore when she made. I just remember that really rubbed me the wrong way.
I know.
I'll have to go back and watch.
I read that from your feedback, and I thought it was funny
There
because
is another scene where she says something like that, but like it's.
I
Just
mean, I don't want to shit on the episode all day. But like I really enjoyed the setup, and I hope it continues through with the entire series of how Uatu presents the show. He leads the UN, and then there's that pause, and this is the moment. Like I really liked the setup of the episode a lot, and just.
But
Yeah.
with our explanation, are you willing to concede that maybe just because Steve didn't
I
do
will
it?
say she's a better fighter. That I get, but the truck flip is just a little.
As a reminder, the Hulk is a byproduct of trying to recreate the super soldier serum.
I can believe if the Hulk did that, no problem. No problem.
So you're saying only the Hulk is allowed to do that?
He's saying if She-Hulk did it, he'd have a problem with it. Like She-Hulk can't do that.
The physics of the truck flip just a little odd to me.
I very much believe she could have done it. I don't believe she would have tried to find out she could do it for the first time in a firefight.
To me, I felt like it was. To me, it felt like it was one of those things where sometimes like you just see something and you're like, I could lift that. You know what I mean? Like to me, it felt like she was doing something that she was fairly confident she could pull off, and that's why she did it. And then she was so impressed with herself, she's like, let's do it again.
Yeah, no, and after she did it once, it totally made sense. And everything else she did, every other move, everything else, I thought was great. That one to me, it felt like it was out of her character, whereas everything else in the show felt like it was her character dialed in.
Cap didn't take Thor's hammer down in the Avengers 1 minute after picking up the shield. He's. I'm trying to think where I'm going.
Well, as a reminder, she'd already been training before she went out on the field, and she's already a well-established, trained military person. Like Cap was not. Cap was not in the military.
Hey man, we got half an episode of Falcon training with the shield.
No, but I'm saying
I don't see Peggy training with the shield.
So you missed all the weights that she threw at the wall?
Yeah, she knew how to throw it. Like her using the shield, her throwing the shield, everything like that totally made sense.
And they showed it earlier in the episode.
Yeah, her battering ram something huge was where it's like, And again, it's not even her strength. It's just like I just don't see that character as they've written her having been willing to do that.
Yeah.
But her scene with Steve in the air, that was beautiful.
That was probably my favorite thing ever in the entire episode.
That one take shot, and she's just wrecking Nazis in the sky.
So you're okay with her doing that, even though we never saw Cap do that?
Yep. We saw Cap crash a plane
because the physics of this makes perfect sense.
Hey, I could believe that more than I could believe her flipping a truck.
For me, as she got more skilled,
the G forces on her flying through the air and grabbing on there, that would be insane amount.
Yeah,
G force right there.
Yep.
This would be almost like lifting a truck.
I don't know how she would breathe in that atmosphere,
but really quick though, like it'd be like a jerk moment that might pull her arm out of socket, even powered or not. But you're
what if, man?
But that's cool and not the car.
I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, and I think I didn't like it because.
Well, you went from not loving it to not
I think I didn't love it because I kind of wish they would have left Steve out of it.
Really?
Honestly.
Why? Why?
Like I didn't like the idea that their stories still had to be intertwined.
But it's their love story.
That's quite romantic, honestly, is that their story transcends the multiverse.
In my mind, where I saw it going was in that moment when Steve
gets the powers.
When Steve gets shot, right? I would have liked Howard, that been more of a turning point for Howard to become more of a hero figure and a fighter rather than someone who just builds the tech.
But that's not in his character. That's never
But
been
seeing
established in his
Steve
character.
die could have changed his character.
Well, he doesn't care about Steve. He doesn't even know Steve.
But Steve would be the guy that stays in it. Like him staying in it and being a proto Iron Man, I think was way more interesting than sending Tony in or sending Howard in. Sorry.
I just want to remind you, he saw a lot of people die besides Steve, and that didn't prompt him to do anything.
It changed him. It made him date Hedy
Steve
Lamarr.
died. He was
no, he dated her beforehand. He saw Tommy Lee Jones die. Look at that.
God.
And that made him a better button pusher.
Like, yeah, exactly. He's the button pushing guy. I mean, you could argue that he was more of a hero.
Tommy Lee Jones to reprise his role for this?
I think Bradley Whitford was fine. Like, because Bradley Whitford was actually in the one shot that they did of Agent Carter.
Tommy Lee Jones' character didn't say a line. He didn't say a single line.
No, this was his moment right here where he gets shot.
Tommy Lee Jones do some ADR.
Yeah, that's it. But I think Howard was more of a hero than he was in the original story, though, because he actually went out on the front line with them. You know what I mean? So, like, he did get a more heroic story. You know, like from my wife's point of view, when she watched this, she's like, "Oh, so basically everything's better if Peggy got the serum." And in a lot of ways, she's not wrong. No, Peggy was better. Steve got to.
Shield doesn't get founded though, presumably.
Well,
Bucky doesn't go crazy
unless Steve found Shield. You know.
Oh, what a twist!
Well, see, the thing that's interesting now is less about this,
Shield, though, right? Sorry,
but more what are they going to do with all of the pieces, like knowing that they're going to come back to her, knowing that she's coming back into the world as a person out of time. What's going to happen now? Like, to me, it would be really interesting. What if Steve becomes like the Winter Soldier type, and he's the guy that got captured and gets augmented, and then you throw them at each other, and they're on equal footing in somewhat different ways? Well, that would be very different.
That's what,
and that would be very in line with how that relationship worked.
I was full on expecting that to happen when Steve got captured. I thought
same. Like, I was immediately like, "Oh, we're going to Winter Soldier him." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I still think they might do it, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see him super soldiered up with all of the same stuff, or you could see him fully teched up.
I would go a different route. Like, I would make him still like little guy, but like with a big ass arm, like one big ass arm. That's just metal.
I mean, there's a lot of ways they could do it, but it would play the story up in such a different and unique way.
Yeah.
And kind of plays into everything.
Crimson Dynamo.
Well, I think the cool thing is that they have said that their plan is to check in with Peggy every now and then. So like we might get more of her story that's a parallel to what we saw Steve's story be, but just in different ways. But I mean, I would say with this slide right here, this scene, it would suggest that S.H.I.E.L.D. in some capacity still exists, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. But also what I was going to say was that, like, doesn't Nick Fury have like a S.H.I.E.L.D. patch or something on
I don't see the patches. Hawkeye has a patch on his
not on the jacket. I don't think he has on the jacket.
Hawkeye
definitely does. S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of below ground until after the first Avengers, and then after that, S.H.I.E.L.D. became a bigger deal. Like,
that's true.
They were kind of a total behind the scenes player, and that was their coming out party.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it was kind of after this.
One of the big selling points of this show is that the fact they got most people from the movies to reprise their roles, and one episode in, did that work for you guys? You know.
I don't care either way, to be honest.
Okay.
Like the one they needed the most is Peggy Carter. Like, they got her, and that all worked. Like her, and I'm spacing on the name because I'm bad with names, but like that character has always.
So Selena had this cool question, which she said, "Why do you expect them to still have the same character, even though they're in a different universe?" Well, that's actually explained by the Watcher at the beginning of the episode, right? Is that he's specifically looking at a universe that up till that moment was exactly the same as the universe that we knew. But in that choice that she makes, that's the slight difference that's the catalyst for everything that happens after, right? And so,
and also, if you go ahead.
Sorry, no, I'm curious to see what you have to add to that.
I was also going to say, even if you go back to Loki and you listen to Kang and you listen or Immortus or whatever version of him
He Who Remains.
We'll say that, even though, but yeah. he talks about all these different versions of himself and how all of them kind of had some consistency of character. You have these how many different variants of Loki, all having some consistency and variance of character.
Right.
So you'd have that kind of it plays into the next step, which is you two telling you like, hey, these are worlds that all played up to a certain point. Then you had an arc and pivot, and it's does that character how that character behaves with a different set of circumstances. That was always the heart of What If, is you're changing one thing and seeing where the dominoes fall.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. And Selena's saying, honestly, I think I would have loved to see Steve Rogers hold a grudge after Peggy took the serum. But I'm saying, as interesting as that sounds, like if that's still the same Steve that we knew from the first 30 minutes of the first Avenger, what about that character would do that? You know what I mean? Like, so I think the whole fun of What If is that in this sense, in What If is similar to what Greg's saying, is that they've built 13 years worth of stories, and they're leaning into it and saying, okay, these stories the way we told them. So when we change one tiny thing,
Mhm.
like Greg said, how do the dominoes fall? So I think it breaks the story. It breaks the concept of the show if we start assuming that everybody's going to behave out of character because something changed. You know what I mean?
But the flip side to that is like, assuming we come back to this story is, well, let's see if something happened to Steve. I mean, Steve's been bullied his entire
Right.
time
Right.
until he
Right.
gets powers. What if he's put in a position where the bullying finally makes him snap, then he gets powers, and then he takes it out that way? I could see
Yeah.
that being a place where he lands,
Later,
but that
for
wouldn't be a
sure.
place where he
Yeah.
starts.
Exactly.
That's why to me it's really interesting if they put him, like, if these dominoes sent him down some kind of Winter Soldiery path,
Yeah.
not necessarily the same way, and you either build him up where he's like snaps back at people bullying him his whole time, or something else, and you kind of flip that whole dichotomy on its head. But it's still, how do these characters behave when you're
Right.
putting them in these situations?
Right, but the days and weeks right after the moment, the catalyst, those should still fall pretty in line with the character. But when we go revisit them 70 years in the future, the sky's the limit on what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like if they want to
Yeah.
make Steve evil, that's cool, whatever. But like I think that the fans deserve to see at least for a small part, because like the assumption is, like, yes, when you say I would have liked to see this and this, that's assuming that this is done, that this story is done, but it's not. There's going to be more. There's going to be a lot more. So Coker has a question for us. Steve wasn't famous as Captain Rogers, so why was she Captain Carter? Did they address that and I missed it, or am I stupid for asking? Should we just call him stupid, or
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if I
Excellent.
remember correctly, she like made it a point to call herself that when what was it? Like
After
her
she got the
commanding officer
Tesseract.
was giving her shit.
Yeah.
She demanded
Yep.
that rank from
Yep.
Yeah, she demanded the rank, but honestly, also there was sexism at play, right? Because they made the joke about like, you're lucky they didn't make you go do the USO tour.
Yeah.
Right. So because she wasn't a man, they didn't send her out to do the USO tour, and instead they kept her in hiding. So he got to be called Captain America reluctantly because, that's what he had to be called when he was selling, stamps and shit like that. But like, yeah, she just demanded they call her captain. In fact, she demanded an increase to her rank when Flynn said, "You're an agent, you can't be on the field." Well, then you need to promote me. How about captain? That sounds pretty good. So
Mhm.
that's how. You're not stupid, and you're definitely not stupid for asking. We love it when people ask, and thank you for joining us, Coker. And Selena, thank you for your questions too. I'm curious. By the way, Ricky, you did bring up something that I did want to. I don't want to be that guy that gets mad at them for not pulling it off, but you mentioned how they pretty much got everybody. The one that hurt was just a little bit.
Josh Keaton
was Josh Keaton. Like, I liked him. He was passable, but God, I just kept thinking to myself, this would have hit so much better if that was Chris Evans, because Chris Evans and Haley Atwell have such an amazing chemistry.
I feel like
that
they
I think
the New York accent.
Was it thick? I don't know. Was it a thick New York accent?
it was a little exaggerated, but like the thing that got me was like he played Iron Man in the Iron Man VR game. So like he played the two. So I thought that was kind of funny. But like I would hear certain bits of RDJ come out in his performance of Steve, and I'm all
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It was kind of wonky at times, but I accepted it. It was fine.
What'd you
That's
guys
what I expect from a cartoon.
What'd you guys think of Jeffrey Wright as a Watu?
It's great.
Fun.
I couldn't understand him half the time. It reminded me of Tom Hardy Bane.
What?
But,
And I'm all
he's
like,
fine.
what are you saying?
He'll
Jeffrey
make
Wright?
a great Commissioner Gordon next year too. So,
But I mean,
I-
you say that as someone that watches the subtitles, Dennis, like liking Jeffrey Wright. I think
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I didn't understand half of what he said. I had to go back and put on subtitles on my second
Interesting.
viewing.
Yeah. By the way, Coker did say what up to Greg Phillips, not to the rest of us, just to you.
Yeah, F
What
the
up,
rest
Coke?
of us.
I actually
but, like-
dug him because I thought that I think when I used to read these comics, that's how they started, right? With the Watcher giving his little intro, and
Yeah,
then
he
and
would
then
bust- he would
reminding
bust a
you at the
rhyme in
end.
beginning.
Yeah, and then reminding you at the end, I am the Watcher and stuff.
He'd
And
be
so,
like, as the Watcher, I ask,
Yeah,
what if
and
Hulk beat Spider-Man or some shit?
and it's funny because when I read them as books, I never really processed that like this is pretty much the Rod Serling introduction
yeah,
to
it's the
Twilight
Twilight
Zone.
Zone. That's all it
But
is.
when I saw it on TV, I was like, well, this is absolutely the Twilight Zone, you know? Yeah.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be because like as a musician, drummer, etc., I might have lost certain abilities to hear certain tones. So when people have like a deeper voice or like some kind of raspy voice, like I have a
Are
lot
we
of trouble hearing.
diagnosing Frank's hearing?
Yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
Maybe we
We're
are.
gonna be on the couch right now on the couch. It
We
all
should play some
started when I was
tones.
5.
Maybe we are. I guess we've talked about it. Well, I don't know. I talked about it, and I think I just want to make sure. Did everybody talk about what they liked the most about this one?
We talked about what Ricky liked the least about this
No,
one.
I like the intro. I like
Length.
the Twilight Zone setting or setup on how they do it. I really did enjoy that.
What was your second choice for things that you liked, Ricky? What's a close second?
The close second, I liked how when she defeated the Red Skull, her getting sucked in that portal to what we kind of know as the moment from the Avengers when that portal opens. I really like them looping it back to that. It's kind of cool.
You didn't like when she flipped a car in a feat of strength, but you did
Nope.
like it when she went away.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting, Ricky. Interesting.
Car flip was just.
Did anybody else dig the passive body positivity that was in this episode? Where like they didn't make fun of Carter for how giant she was, and they never made fun of Steve for how little he was for the whole episode. And those two were just allowed to have their romance, even though they had very crazy proportions to each other.
I could take it or leave it, but that seems pretty unlikely that they would not get flack for that. Like,
yes, I know, and that's why I'm saying I thought it was cool and probably intentional that they didn't choose to show us, them getting flack for it.
They laid on the sexism.
What was that, Greg?
I was going to say they would have given, if this were a longer thing, they would have given Steve the Highland Commandos would have given Steve grief. They wouldn't give her grief because they saw her kick the crap out of everyone and be like what was it? Dum Dum was like after watch, like, who are you? And she kicks the shit out of the guy. He's like, I'm good.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
They're not gonna mess with her. They might tease her a little bit, but they would never, and they were never the type that would be hardcore like mess with anyone. They might just do 40s era military teasing. And so again, if it were just Steve, they probably would have messed with them a little bit. Like
but
that would have been it.
But I caught that they chose not to show that.
They also didn't have much time to show that. Like if it were like a 2-hour movie, they would do like the Richard Donner, like making fun of them in the diner thing.
That's fine. I'm just going off what I got, and they picked and chose what they should show and what they don't need to show. And so I appreciated the brevity of it, and that they just went through like the greatest hits of Captain America: First Avenger. And I gotta say, honestly, like I like the action in this better than the action in Captain America: First Avenger. I give that movie a lot of grief because like all of the action is pretty much in montages. Even her montages were cooler than Steve's were. You know what I mean?
I can appreciate them showing Steve using I think he's using like a walker at one point, even while he's like the Hydra Stomper. I thought that was really
Dude,
that
do
that
you
was a
know
bigger touch.
do you know how that hit me? Like
How?
13 years, and that was the closest thing that we've had to a disabled superhero in this story. I don't count freaking War Machine because that guy's walking perfectly normal by the end of like he gets
Hey,
fully
Don Cheadle
paralyzed.
only had one leg brace movie in his contract.
Yeah, like for like 5 minutes, no, 5 seconds, just a Tony Steak joke is the all that we see him doing
But
the braces.
also, they didn't have their tone yet set up by the time they released the first Avenger. Like that was their third movie.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, hindsight's totally 2020.
Yeah.
They had like I'm in no way knocking.
so-
I'm in no way knocking the first Avenger. Honestly,
What I'm saying is no, but what I'm saying is that of course they're going to have sharper fighting scenes and choreography and
Yeah.
cinematography.
and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's
Also,
cool.
also
would
to Frank's
just-
point, like, oh, go ahead, Greg. Sorry, I don't want to cut you
I
off.
was just gonna say, just going back though, Peggy is a different character. She's more of a fighter. She's trained. She knows what she was doing. They played up on that really to sell the contrast, whereas Steve was learning how to do everything. Like him accidentally figuring out, like, oh, the shield will bounce off stuff. That's cool. All these other things. Like he figured this stuff out slowly because he was learning how to do all this and was given the power. She took it and embraced it.
But I meant they gave more time to actually showing the action too. Like in
They were playing to her strengths.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Yep.
That's fair. Yeah.
Steve also had one component going into the super soldier program, and that's his heart, his spirit. That's pretty much it. Everything else he had
I just wanted to see Nazis get their asses kicked in that first movie because that was really the only time we're ever going to see it, right? Like that was our only chance to see Nazis get their butts kicked, and then they just got montaged. I don't care what degree, what extent that he's kicking their asses. We know that no matter how trained he is, he can kick the crap out of Nazis, and they glossed over it pretty fast in that movie. And that's why I appreciated that this went a little deeper.
They did World War II movie reel type stuff. Like they definitely played into the era piece big time in the original movie, which is one of the things I love about it. Whereas this, they definitely played it more like it was more modern to Frank's point on they've got their tone down, but they also played it more like a modern 30-minute zippy through. We're not going to hit the montage shit. We're not going to hit the war feel.
But we still got montages
like,
too.
To Frank's point, like if this were a movie, I would have at least like some explanation of like why. Like to be fair, like someone with a disability or with that's injured like Steve is just not going to waltz away with like that type of military, like still be enlisted in the military, you know?
I don't know that he was enlisted in the military.
You're talking like a $1 million wound or whatever.
Yeah, like
he'd get sent home like after.
Yeah, I don't know that he was officially in the military at that point. Like I think he could.
Wasn't he? He was training with the others.
He would have been training up to that point. He would have been in the military. They might have wanted to kick him out, but you figure if he was the one person that could kind of like help Peggy and kind of keep her from wanting to rip everyone's head off, they would keep him around as like a
consultant or something.
You know, playing 40s era, like for a second, they'd have been like, yo, keep her in line type deals. Like that would exactly be what the military brass of that era would do.
You know, I just thought of a better reason actually, because that armor was pretty big, but maybe you needed someone of like slight stature to be able to fit into it.
I was totally going to bring that up. Like maybe like slide in a line about that, you know. But again, it's I think they made smart choices with deciding what to show in their 30-minute slot.
Yeah.
So I do have to ask before we go. I know. Did you guys get vibes of this when you watched it?
No, I could pull up another picture of the vibes I
got.
got.
Vibes from something different, but that's an interesting one. There was a Hydra series a Shield series that kind of went into the origins of Shield and Hydra.
Yeah, I know what you're
That
talking about. That was in
that
the Agents of Shield show.
well, it was a Hickman series, like a long form thing, but it got into like how Hydra had all of those types
Yeah.
of things, and that was kind of they've dovetailed that into different pieces, and I've seen like different pieces of Hickman stuff getting picked up. So I immediately went to that thing, like that particular version of it. It's like, oh, we're gonna do we're doing that version of Hydra going into this versus
Mhm.
like more military kind of clandestine Hydra. That was to me weird though, like the entire thing, like, okay, you got your dimensional portal open and you opened it there. That's just such a weird twist to
Yeah,
me.
it was a different thing for the Red Skull for sure, but then I remembered, oh, in this version of the story, he doesn't have Arnim Zola like by his side because Peggy so like wrapped
Yeah.
that up so quickly, right? So he went in a completely different direction. I would
Yeah.
like to point out like the one thing that was they kind of cheated, right? Because if they say that the one difference in their universe was Peggy deciding, you know, uh, whether to stay,
Yeah.
you know, or go. If you look at when the Red Skull has the big wall of Yggdrasil, the button on that one is actually made to look like a Shumagorath type creature on the animated version. But I actually
Oh.
did go back and rewatch the scene
original.
from the original,
movie.
and it doesn't look like that at all. It looks like
Shit.
Interesting.
it looks like roots on the tree.
Maybe
for sure.
if Peggy gets the super soldier serum, it changes the door. Like depending on who gets the serum, it makes the door look different.
But
The,
the way
old guy there is like, I gotta change this.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
the way I took it was maybe there was an alternate version of that story where they considered doing a Shumagorath type thing that came through the portal, and they just decided for budget reasons, maybe like that, let's not do that or something, you know. Because I thought that worked really well. Like Ricky was saying, is like that was easily an equatable and sleeker way of bringing her into the future, right? Is having her like I always really hated that like the movie doesn't give a good reason for why he doesn't jump out of the plane after he's pointing it down at the water, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he could.
put the fucking club on that shit.
Exactly. He could do
Even
it.
Tommy
He
Lee
just
Jones did that in
he didn't think to do it. But so I like the idea of this could be Shumagorath, and maybe we'll see more Shumagorath again in the future. I think there's rumors that he might be in Multiverse of Madness. I don't know.
Yeah, they were saying.
I mean, I took it more of like as a bummer that the final boss was a vessel to get her to where they need her to be in the story versus like, I guess more of an Easter egg type deal, you know, like an actual nameable thing, you know.
Wait,
Yeah.
what would
Well,
you have
I'd
wanted
also
in
say,
that
like-
situation, Ricky?
What was that?
What would you have wanted in that situation? What?
I don't know, just some beast that you can recognize and pinpoint. You know,
What would you want her to do with it, if not to get to the next part of the story?
I would say the same. You can do the same thing. I just would have wished they would have had a monster that we
They had a
knew.
name tag.
Yeah, they had a name tag for sure.
Hello, my
I
name is
would actually
Shumagorath.
It
say
had a name.
one disappointment was I thought that they undersold Red Skull a little too much, and like there wasn't much to her dealing with Red Skull, and that was, I think, one of the few spots where I was not a fan of the show, because it felt like, all right, you have him, he's one of the best villains there, you put him in a different spot, that should make him more interesting, and he kind of got overwhelmed by a giant squid or like a monster thing, and it's like, well, that was kind of like underwhelming, whereas he was kind of that most interesting of the first wave Marvel villains. Okay, I guess you can technically say Loki was, but really he was like the most interesting of the first wave, like pure villains. And really, he's still one of their best, like top 5 of the movie villains. So to not do something interesting with him when you had him on the table again, to me feels like a mistake.
I mean,
Yeah, but it
in
did
the
help-
movies,
it did
he's
help
in
the
that
story go
breakout
faster.
scene, that Bucky breakout scene too, and it wasn't really, you know, he wasn't really there.
But
Then
She didn't break Bucky out at the same time that Steve did, though. Like,
yeah,
she presumably did it faster and better.
for the sake of
Yeah.
getting this story down to 30 minutes, like something had to be
It works.
sacrificed, and you know,
Yeah.
you know, if somebody ends up being if those somebodies are Tommy Lee Jones and the Red Skull, so be it.
Well,
Hugo
Weaving
Weaving wasn't
has-
coming back.
Well, that's
he
why I
said
said
he said
that's why I
ages
said-
ago he didn't want to come back. So
Yeah.
that probably played into it. And honestly, they've made it clear they're not going to bring a version of Red Skull back into play. So it's like, other than at the end of time or at the to deal with the Soul Stone, that's kind of his pen. It's like, okay, cool. You wanted to go off and screw up with time and space. You get to sit here and.
But isn't he free to
Gatekeep.
leave now that the stone's returned?
Who knows? Who knows with Marvel?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
thought it was in poor taste that they had Shuma Gorath write "fuck Hugo Weaving" in bold letters on the wall. Like, I thought that was in poor taste. I was like, Disney, what are you doing here?
Oh man. Okay.
The one thing that I did wish that they did do was have her. I wanted her to say the exact thing that Steve said when he realized that he misses his date on Saturday, or he missed his date on Saturday. I was hoping she would say the exact same line. That's the only thing that I would have wanted. But other than that, she did the thing with the punching, and this is my favorite part because I don't think I talked about it. But is when she was punching the heavy bag, and she punched it off the thing. I'm all like, yes. I'm all like, come on, she's got to do it. She got to do it. And I'm all, she did the thing. But then I saw she did several things on that wall.
That universe's Steve lives long enough to see Peggy in the future?
We'll see. I think that's a question that all of us want to know, like, the answer to. And I think because they know that we want that answer, we're probably going to get some sort of answer to it later.
Health-stricken, wounded Steve.
I want a Winter Soldier Steve. Like,
That'd
with
be
one big
interesting.
arm, like as if a baby got its hand stuck in a bowling ball and then had to grow up with that bowling ball so that they have one buff ass arm.
Steve.
Yeah. That's what I want.
All right. I think we got to wrap it up. I am curious, like, overall, like, if you guys had to score this episode, like, just by itself without knowing what comes later, like, where would you guys put this on a scale of 1 to 10? Go with Greg first.
I'll give it 8.5.
That's pretty generous. Frank, what do you think?
Give it a solid 8.
Yeah. I want to hear
6.
Ricky's.
I'm
Yeah,
a 6.
I knew that was a 6.
It's fine. I'll watch it again.
Kid.
I didn't love it, but I like the idea.
I loved it, but I acknowledge that there's a lot of room for more. And so right now I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've watched it 4 times this week, 3 on the first day. I just love it. It's so easy to watch.
Territory. It's animated. It's a different change of pace for everyone.
I'm a sucker for animation too, and the animation's spectacular in the show. The faces are a little weird when they're talking, but the action is top notch, and it's like kind of like the perfect marriage of Disney and Marvel, right? Like, just the way things look. Like, so yeah,
there's definitely a Disney lens to it for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
You never watched the Doctor Who things, but so they have some episodes where they lost the visuals, and they only have the audio, but they put cartoons or like animated things on the audio that they have. So it's like they recreated the show, and the animation is very similar to this What If. The What If is way better, especially when the action takes place. But when they're sitting around talking, it's a lot the same. It's very similar.
I would probably like Doctor Who way more if it was just animated all the time.
Yeah, it would probably be better, like, for you, because you don't like the special effects, right? That was one of the things.
They're awful. They're awful. But we're way over on time, so I do want to say, first and foremost, thanks to Greg Phillips for coming on our show and talking all about all the nerdy things we did, and putting up with us. And if you have anything that you want to, if you have anything going on that you want to let people know where they can find you, please feel free to do that right now. It's fine if you don't. It's cool. Most people come on the show and they're like, I don't want people finding me. It's okay.
The people who know, like, most people who I want to be able to find me can find me. They know where I'm at on social and everything. So.
Awesome. And then obviously thanks to our patrons for supporting our growth, and to our audience for tuning in. If you had fun, Frank, what can they do?
Smash that like button the way Peggy smashes that car, even though Ricky doesn't like it. Leave a comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and then
I think that's
subscribe
it.
Subscribe to Patreon.
Yes.
There you go.
That's where we're going to be in about 2 or 3 minutes from now. we're going to be heading over to the soapbox to just wind down and chat about all the things we forgot to. I got some fun facts that I didn't get to share on this one, but I will share them in the soapbox. But yeah, with that, thanks for watching Den Excelsior. See you next time, true believers. Enough said.